Hey, and it's just me. Michael's coming, I assume, shortly to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. I can't imagine what it would be today. So let me get the comments up here, see who's in. See who's in. Do we have any comments at all? Anybody there at all? Nope. All right. Well, in case you don't know, in case you've been asleep like I have, it's early here in California. We had an election last night. And there's Michael. Looks like he's.
Gotta get my headphones on. Hold on.
All right. Morning, Gary. Chris Bounds. Morning. There he is.
Told you so.
Told me what? What did you want to talk about this morning, Michael? Anything?
There's an elephant in the room. No. I don't know anything big in the news lately. It's
I don't know. I've been asleep for 2 days.
Kind of at a loss for stuff to talk about. More of the same old.
Same old. All right.
No, sir. No, not the same old. All right. I'm gonna let you. I want to hear your take first before I go off.
Oh, there you go. My take is funny. I typically don't pay any attention the night of the election because I want to sleep. And I knew, hey, I've got a show in the morning. I better get some rest. But I did glance a couple times, and I caught my wife's phone. She was on the couch looking, and I noticed a sea of red. But that doesn't always mean, that it's good news. But I did check in, and people seemed to think things were going well. But you never know. So I woke up extra early this morning and caught up on everything. So it was what I thought would happen in my common sense brain, and what I hoped I was happening in my common sense brain. Hopefully the common sense and goodness can still count in America. Some remnant of the American I grew up in is still here. But I just never know what is going to happen. The election, the way elections are done, it's the biggest shock to me is that we know, and that we knew that last night. I'm like, wait a minute. I expected to wake up to, they're still counting votes in Pennsylvania, and they just found 250,000 votes in the trunk of a car, and that'll turn, But last I heard, Harris had not conceded.
Yeah.
So there's still room for shenanigans. So I'm 99% positive, but that these Marxists don't go away easy, Michael. And they don't lose well. They're not good losers. So
there's still room for shenanigans, but not room for shenanigans to reverse the results. There's shenanigans. They're going full bore right now with shenanigans, trying to do whatever they can to sabotage the new administration because the transition starts now. Right. So that it can't be undone. Now, I understand.
That'll be interesting, by the way. Just a little historical note: when George Bush II was elected and the Clintons' White House team, when the transition started, they did all kinds of little annoying things, like taking the W's off of typewriters because the W was coming in, right? I can't even imagine what they're going to do today. They might lay landmines. They might, who knows? But it's not going to be a very smooth transition between these two camps, I don't think.
This is going to be the most tumultuous transition, I think, in the history of
I hadn't even thought of that.
Transitions. Yeah. Well, so I totally understand. Like you were saying, you had this expectation of, it's going to drag for X period of time before we have a definitive answer. I understand that we've been conditioned Like just a few years, we've been conditioned. It's like, oh, goodbye election day. It's something in the past. We used to know who our president was the day of, as it was meant to be, and that's just gone forever. And that's kind of the black pill take on things, being black pill.
Right.
But I had a sense, I just the sources I listened to, including, the guy you turned me on to a long time ago, Dr. Steve Turley, but also Tim Pool, who's a little more on the, he's a little more like Steve Turley's just a cheerleader. He's got great data, but he's just very enthusiastic and a cheerleader. So I kind of take that into consideration. Sometimes he's just being very positive, and Tim Pool's kind of the other side. You're right. He has good data, but he's more on the kind of skeptical or pragmatic side.
Tim Pool's come a long way, by the way.
Yeah,
when I started listening to him, he's come a long way.
He has. He's now pro Second Amendment. When I started, he was anti Second Amendment. He's now way pro Second Amendment, etc. But those sources combined with the sources that I read, I told Gina on the phone, and one of our producer Gina on the phone, one of our conversations, I said, I think we're going to know day of. I think we are going to know that Trump is the president before the end of election day. And she goes, really? And I and she takes the other thing. I think it'll be at least a week or two, or maybe
that's what they kept telling us. Yeah.
Well,
which made me think, if that happened, they would even erase, give them a month and they will erase this result.
Yeah.
Somehow.
But now it can't be, right? And the too big to rig phrase is what happened. It is what happened when their ground game, when they win obviously Arizona and Nevada are still remain to be seen, but every battleground state was in the red prior, polled in the red prior to the election. And then he's ticking them off, like Georgia, North Carolina. They called Pennsylvania. It was the death knell, and they held out for as long as they could. Like, they didn't call Pennsylvania until late. And then, so here's what I did. Like you, or in 2020, I did what you did. I went radio silent, no tech. I just was so, in turmoil internally that I just didn't want to watch it, and fasted from technology the full day, and bad things happen. This time, like, no, I know he's going to win. I want to enjoy the ride, so I'm just going to watch it. So I watched it all day.
Good for you.
I went from different YouTubers that were live streaming, and then went to. We don't have cable, so I only had 2 local channels, the local ABC and NBC. So I had those 2 going back and forth between them, and then on the live streams, and it was
Channel 7 and Channel 4 up there.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I'm looking at Channel 4, and at the time they've got Trump at 120 and Kamala at like 50 or something, and then I go on to like Ben Shapiro's live stream, and they already got Trump at 246, and I'm like, and I remember this from previous elections, like, depending on who you're watching.
Before dinner, my wife had one of the reasons I wasn't paying attention. My wife had a procedure yesterday. Kind of, a little one where she was a little woozy when she came home. And so I was cooking dinner, and I was doing everything like, the supremely marvelous man that I am, wonderful husband that I am. The key is humility, Michael. And she did turn on NBC News, and I was like, I'm not gonna watch it. I did glimpse that NBC had a kind of a pie chart, and it was probably 60% blue and 40% red. And I'm like, oh no, wait a minute, that's NBC. Don't, and that might have been the first 5 minutes of it. Who knows? Or that might have been in California, whatever it was. But so it does really matter who you watch.
Yeah.
And what they tell you. And it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
And I don't know if anybody knows this, or any of you guys in the comments, or anybody that might be watching knows this. Do you know about the whole red and blue thing?
Why, if you go, color?
Yeah. Well, if you go online and look, you can Google, and I've seen it, the 1980 election results with Reagan and Carter. The Republicans were blue and the Democrats were red. They
Really?
switched it at some point, and
Interesting.
well, and I think I know why, and I might have heard this. What does red do to you? You go to fast. Why are all fast food restaurants red in their color? Because red stimulates you. Red's kind of a gets you on edge, right? Blue is very calming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a psychological thing that they do, that the networks have done. They purposely did that. They said, we don't want Republicans to be blue. We want when
Yes.
people see
Most
Republicans, we want them to be riled up, like, oh,
agitated. Yeah.
agitated. Yeah.
Well, blue in most like news, you'll find blue is a predominant color when you're watching news. They want you to kind of have confidence, you know,
Is that it?
in
Yeah.
the sources and yeah. But so here the progression last night for me was you know, I listened to certain live streams and then I found out Tucker was going to be going live streaming, and he was at Mar-a-Lago. So he's like in a room at the resort with a couple microphones and chairs set up, a nice background. So all the important people are like in the other room, like all the Trumps and Vivek and
Elon.
etc. So like he's got his first guest was Marjorie Taylor Greene, and so I'm realizing, okay, watching Tucker is like in the heart of what's going on, right? On the inside of the Trump, right? Like Tucker's an insider within the Trump campaign right now. So I started watching Tucker, and he wasn't putting up graphics, and they just called this every now and then. He would look at a monitor and he go, oh, they just called Ohio, or oh, this and that.
Sorry, Michael, I got to interrupt you because Jacqueline just made a great comment. I do remember what you're talking about now. Blue means sorry.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good, Jacqueline.
So in watching Tucker, it was when, and I tuned away from him for a while, but then I tuned back to him. He had like Eric Trump was on, he was talking to him. And then Elon came and sat down. It was like between 8 and 8:30 last night. And, you know, everybody's still the most, you know, it was like even Ben Shapiro and them had Trump at 246, and Pennsylvania was 80% counted. And then you're seeing these margins that are insurmountable, blah, 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 but nobody's calling it. So it's still a question mark. Elon sits down, and he had one of his children with him, one of his little boys with him. And the little boy was messing with the microphone and distracting them. But Tucker was, you know, Tucker was saying, so how are we looking? What do you think? And Elon said, you know, through the distraction of his son at the microphone, you could see Elon. He goes, I looked at the numbers. It's over. Like Elon Musk looking at numbers. That's a guy you want to look at numbers.
Yeah.
That guy,
he doesn't get
numbers mean something, and he understands numbers, and that's why his businesses succeed.
Yeah, I'll take the guy who can get the rocket to go like
right. Yeah, the numbers
like
that are going to make things succeed. Boom, it succeeds.
Yeah.
He's looking at the internal data of the Trump administration or the Trump campaign, and he goes, and he says in the Elon way, he goes, it's over. It's over. Like just calm, straightforward, not like, yes, we won, it's over. He said, I looked at the numbers, it's over. And when he said that, I knew it was over. But all the pundits got to keep their viewers on. They got to keep them going and blah, blah, blah. Right. So I knew at that moment it was over. And then I stayed on watching, you know, jumping back and forth. But finally at 2 a.m., I'm watching ABC, and they finally, after having 266 electoral college votes for Trump, 266, they wouldn't put Alaska up when everybody else puts Alaska up, because Alaska is always Republican. It's only 3. They wouldn't put Alaska up because that would make it 269. And then there's this one electoral in Maine. Maine splits it up, and they have this one in Maine. So it would have been right at 270 or 272 or something like that. But they refused. And finally, at 2 a.m. Pacific time, NBC or ABC, whichever one I was watching at the time, calls Wisconsin, and it's over. It's like even the mainstream had to acknowledge. Right. There was no refuting it. It wasn't even close. There's nothing to debate. There's nothing to sue over. There's no Supreme Court going to make any decisions about anything. The American election system works.
Yep.
It just does.
It does.
Restored confidence.
And we needed that too. We really needed the country needed, because we had lost completely, almost completely, the confidence in our elections. And if you don't have confidence in your elections, you don't,
Yeah.
and there's still, like I said, it's not over. There's going to be something. I know that there is a thought that on January 5th or 6th, or whenever the electoral votes are counted, there's going to be an effort to disqualify Trump based on the 14th Amendment. And that could go to the Supreme Court. Who knows?
Yeah,
So
like he's supposed to be sentenced, right? In one of the indictments that are still out there, he's supposed to be sentenced or something coming up. It's like, this is just the beginning, right? This
Right.
moment is just the beginning of a lot of hard work, but this time he's prepared, right? Having 4 years to go do a deep dive into the corruption in this nation, having 4 years to find the right people that aren't just going to tell him, aren't going to just be yes men, but people to solve these very, very complex problems.
I'm sorry, but
No, go ahead.
people who may be yes men who have knives behind their backs. And as soon as he turns around, that was his biggest failure in his first administration, is the people that he naively, I think, took onto his team. That, who was it? Chuck Schumer said, "Don't go against the deep state. They have 9 different ways to kill you." One of the ways was to put people in on his administration that were his enemies, and subverted it. So hopefully he's gotten smarter on that. I think he has. Honestly, he's a very smart guy. He just is. He's a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, he's just solidified his. I mean, was always going to be a polarizing and standout figure in history, but he has just become one of the most important human beings in human history. Like,
I thought of that. Yeah, I was thinking of that earlier. I think in American history, or maybe in partly you could say world history, the man of the 1700s was George Washington. The man of the 1800s was Abraham Lincoln. The man of the 1900s, probably Winston Churchill. So far, Trump is the man of the 2000s. Just like I said in a good way on our last podcast, he is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man rampaging through New York and knocking down every deep state, every swamp thing, every corrupt idea, institution, roadblock in front of him. He can't be stopped. And he's a lot like Winston Churchill. He's an abrasive personality. He rubs people the wrong way. But if you want the war won, if you want Hitler defeated, you go with Winston Churchill. You don't go with Neville Chamberlain. You don't go with the distinguished that I will just talk to the Fuhrer. And
you don't want a soft-spoken, polite, gentle appeaser.
We're just talking about America. I'm only here to talk about America. But what internationally is going to change now? And what is going to happen between now and January, when Iran and Russia and China and all these people know that their time of their party time is coming to an end? So I'll be very interested to see what happens internationally. And Trump, I'm sure, knowing Trump, he's reaching out to those people right now. And saying, "Don't you dare!"
Well,
because I
think he's taking a nap. Because all reports were that he was actually he had gone like 48 hours straight. I think since the Joe Rogan interview on Friday, that put him behind schedule, like 2 hours. I think from what I hear from multiple people that I've listened to, and Trump himself, that he actually didn't realize that Joe Rogan was going to be a 3-hour interview initially. And so, I mean, I figure he knew by the time he got there, but he had so many rallies on the calendar that he literally showed up 2 hours late to the next rally, because he was thinking a 1 hour interview initially in their scheduling. Oh, you do an hour. Who does a 3-hour interview? Nobody. But that's what Joe Rogan's thing is.
That might have been his best camp. That might have been the last thing he needed for a landslide.
It's so brilliant.
That may have turned from a beatdown to a complete landslide.
Yeah,
so
it's
that could have been brilliant. 2 or 3 rallies worth of time right there.
I tell you what, that bullet missing, right? That just winging his ear, that was their last hope.
Yeah.
Right. Their last hope was this close, and that was over. right? That was miraculous. Even Trump was saying it. So this happened last night. I had to step away real quick while he was giving his speech, and my wife was sitting there, and I came back. She goes, "Oh, you just missed it. He just talked about how, maybe God chose him after he survived that." And my wife is kind of ambivalent in politics and doesn't want to hear about it, but for her to hear that, like,
Right.
and bring it up, it's like, there's no question God is in control. Like, he's in control of everything. He's in control of every little thing, from a head tilt that brings a streak of blood across his face, that brings out who's the true hero, who's truly brave. The guy who stands up and says fight after somebody tries to end him. So I had, it was just nice to be able to say some things to my family directly ahead of time, after following information and following news and following pundits and paying attention, to be able to say ahead of time to my immediate family, my kids, say, Kamala's going to lose. People are going to go crazy. People that are in your life, at your school, blah, blah, blah. And Trump is going to win, and it's going to be the best thing that can possibly happen because of this, and this, and this. It's like, I just had this spontaneous civics lesson with my daughter the morning of, right after I voted. We just connected with her in the kitchen and went down this list of what's going to happen and why it's going to happen. And for it to be borne out, kids won't remember that dad was right about that thing, but the fact is they do know.
Yeah.
that
and especially here in California, they're going to go
Right.
to school, and they're going to, in their friend groups, I'm sure their social media. I think I was watching Bill Whittle, and he had on someone who was predicting that after Trump wins, America will go through a mental health crisis.
Yeah. That
like
guy.
we've never seen before. Yeah.
And that,
So
when I heard that, that's what actually incentivized me to talk to my daughter about one of her teachers. Because I'm saying this here, one of her teachers, even my daughter's like, she's way too one-sided and open to her class. Like, as a teacher, you're not supposed to be indoctrinating. You're supposed to teach. And even my daughter, who's leaning in that direction, has commented about how it feels inappropriate whenever she says those kinds of things. I'm like, I'm worried about that teacher because, girl power. And when you are in the bubble of California, Southern California, teachers union, like some of the most leftist propaganda that you're going to get, people like that are isolated, thinking they're going to win. How could she lose? And then when she loses, they short circuit. And so I was like, I'm, not that her teacher's going to short circuit, but I was just cautioning her,
I wouldn't be surprised. I was a teacher, Michael. I was in the belly of the beast for 15 years.
Right.
This is not the onset of the mental illness. This is the manifestation of what's been there all along.
Right.
And it's not only mental, unless you want to say that side of that type of thinking, that worldview, there is some mental, something's not connecting, and that's the Marxist worldview is, I'm not sure how much I can say, but it is the belly of the beast, and it is deep and it is dark.
Well, Jordan Peterson, it'd be nice if I could just pull it up, but I remember listening to him talk about, because humans have different, we're all different. Like, we have different dispositions, different tendencies, all those personality tests that are done are developed for a reason, because we all have different inclinations. And people who tend to be liberal, right? Like women who are more emotional and tend to be liberal are more inclined to mental disorders, right? Yes. People who are liberal, who the same things that lead them to liberalism also lead them toward mental health issues. And so
mental and emotional, yes.
And emotional issues.
And that's another, again, I'm going to talk tomorrow a little bit about how to filter this through a Christian worldview, which we're doing a little bit here, but this is gonna sharpen the divide. It's a defining moment.
Yes.
And it's going to be a defining moment for the church in America.
Uh-huh.
And who knows what's going to happen, but the door is now open for some very angry, very mentally challenged people to lash out. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the church, not only between the two sides, two political sides, because there's Democrats in my church. I go to very conservative Baptist church. My old church is leaning very liberal, and they did a lot of things, years ago, politically, that cost them and divided their church. There's going to be a big divide between men and women.
Yeah.
Trump, especially young men and young women, and in the years to come, that'll be interesting, because a lot of young men are like, Trump's the only guy talking about my problems. And
to live in a day when it's cool to be conservative, right? For young men.
Why not be counterculture that
the
way?
rebels on the good.
No. I'm like, I told my daughters and friends, why can't you guys rebel against the people on TikTok that are telling you all this crazy stuff? Why do you have to rebel against the stuff that I rebelled against and my my brothers and sisters?
It's crazy for you and I to see the liberal crazies that we grew up with in school ended up becoming the government, right? All the leftist anti-government protesters end up becoming careerists and lawyers and then become what they hated, right? They become what they fought against. They've gone from anti-war to war. Like the left is now the party of war.
That's like, the one that I can't quite get that into my brain, that the Democrats are now the party.
And it happened quick. That one happened quick. It was like
did.
Turn of a switch. Oh, the lobbyists who are coming to us, who are giving us all kinds of money, just want us to say we need to defend democracy, build some more bombs. Oh, okay.
Did you see the clip from Jon Stewart where he's talking to Tim Walz and about the Cheneys?
No.
Oh, Jon Stewart's like, what are you doing bringing the Cheneys on here? And they're like, oh, well, they'll bring up the big tent, they'll help the Republicans who want to do the right thing. And he's like, but they're the Cheneys. They're the ones that convinced us to go into all these wars. Oh, we won't take that part of their advice. He goes, do you promise? Because I don't believe you. So it's just this, the war, the hawks are now the Democrats. And that's, to me, goes totally against everything I learned when I was growing up, or thought I knew.
Well, it's the brain dead, right? That they've just had figureheads. They haven't had impressive people running the party. They haven't, like Obama's semi-impressive. He's articulate, right? He can speak well. He's just bought and sold, right? He'll say whatever, and so
he is the man behind the curtain. He is the man behind the curtain.
Right. And so he's the closest impressive person on the side, but everybody they have is just a DEI hire that's just a figurehead because of the way they look. And that can't be sustained. You can't sustain the most complex infrastructure, the United States government. You can't sustain the most complex infrastructure with figureheads that can't talk their way out of a paper bag. You've got Kamala that can't, and this is a point I made with my daughter. I'm like, you've got Donald Trump, who's run multinational corporation businessman. When he does something wrong, people's lives are affected, dollars and cents. This is a guy that wants to do right, and he knows how he's savvy. He's economically just a kind of a savant. That's the kind of guy you want running this incredibly complex system to get it back to health. So,
well, from your lips to God's ears, there, Michael. I think it's a good day. Day by day. Today is a good day. We'll see where it leads now. But you're right. As you always say, who's in control, Michael?
God is in control. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. Probably see you Friday, maybe.
See you Friday. All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Are we over?
Did you click it? You want me to click it?
Oh. End stream.
There it is.
Got it.
Bye, everybody.